Good morning. Today we're going to look at some inflation and oil and some other prices and see what's happening, who got the call right about what was going to happen and who got it wrong, so that we understand better what actions we can take and so that we can be prepared and prosper when other people maybe are not prospering because they're listening to the wrong people. So let's get right into this. All right. So, U.S. government spending. You can track U.S. government spending. It's shown online. You'll see this long-term trend up here as the economy grows, down as the economy contracts some, starting in 2010 area. Back up here, right here, it starts coming back down. It looks like it's really like a percent of GDP. Direct government spending is probably not creating the inflation that we have today. It just isn't varying that much. Now, we'll go to the next graph and we'll say total money supply. As you know, total money supply is inflation. Nothing more is inflation. Inflation means that you printed more of money, and therefore it will become less valuable, either immediately or over time. Sometimes it didn't happen at first because people don't know it's less valuable. And so you see it here, beginning of 2020, COVID happens, money supply goes, up maybe 75%. So you have an eventual 75% inflation unless they take this money away. Okay, there's various ways they can take the money away. One is with interest rates increases, which takes it out of businesses because they can't create as much profit on the money then, so they need less of it. Second is from the stock market. Stock market values go down, business profits go down. And third would be to reverse what they did to create inflation in the first place, which you see a little bit here. Quantitative easing, which is things like them buying bonds to keep the economy liquid, decreasing government spending, paying off debt, things like that. They don't usually like to go that route because it actually costs the government money and they would like someone else to pay it, which is more convenient. So we'll go to the next graph. I figured I would show this to you guys so you guys don't have to spend the time researching it. You don't have to go look at it. Watch one video, you kind of understand what's going on and why. You don't need to look at the media because, well, they don't understand because they're journalists, not people that understand what happens with money. So we'll get to that real quick. Here is over time. Let's see, U.S. government spending, 10-year spending. You see it's increasing, but really going from this up to here, not that big a deal. I would have thought it would have been bigger, personally, but as you look at the trends, it's not that big a deal. So we're going to take that off because those two, government spending wasn't a big deal. Now this quantitative easing, this money being printed here, this is pretty big, okay? And I don't know why this is here at this rate, but that's a huge amount. This is 75% inflation built in right there, up front, right here, right? Alternative. Now, this is a measurement. Now I'm going to look at the U.S. one first. This is a measurement of inflation over time. This is using the latest CPI index measurement. Now, if we all trust that it's right, then here's your graph. And your grocery stores and your restaurants, prices really only are going up by, 2 to 8%. So if you go and it wasn't, $8, now it's maybe $8.50. For me, that's not what I'm seeing. What I'm seeing is it was $10 and now it's $14. So maybe a 40% increase, which is not reflected here. But if you go and you look at alternate CPI index calculations, the calculations have changed several times over the years. And so the latest one is here in red, okay, and here in red, okay, same graph. And then the blue one here is the 1980 CPI index calculation and the 1990. And so the reason this is important is because if you go by, we'll say, the 1980s calculation, then you're looking at maybe 16%, maybe 17% inflation right now. If you look at the current one, you look at 8.5%. So if you believe, the government, that they're accurately reflecting inflation, they have nothing to gain by not accurately reflecting it, maybe using inflation as an additional tax on the American people, then definitely, you can believe them. But otherwise, you need to understand that your money is being devalued by 8.5% to 17%, so up to double. And so if you put that money into a savings account, you're guaranteed to lose between 8.5% and 17% of that money sitting in an account. So I don't leave money sitting in accounts. Next graph. Here's an article from 2020. I thought it was interesting because the title talks about their belief of what inflation is. Ballooning money supply may be the key to unlocking inflation in the U.S. Well, here's news to the writer, Tom Frank. Ballooning money supply is inflation. What you're talking about is consumer prices. Two different things, and your terms are incorrect. So if you look here, it gives you some opinions of people. Fed and Congress pushing stimulus efforts. Some investors are keeping a close eye on money supply for signs of inflation. Now, investors actually know that inflation occurred. When it occurred, you look back here at the graph. Where is it here? Okay, this is inflation. This is not prices of things, but this is inflation. And so this person's definition is actually wrong. The Fed may not be in control of money supply growth, which means they won't have control of inflation either. And this is from Morgan Stanley. So an investment company is paid to get it right, to understand what inflation actually is and how it affects the prices of things that you buy. Normally characterized by slow, steady growth, the U.S. money supply has grown 20%. Now, we saw that over this longer period of time, longer than this, it was 75% growth of the money supply. So apparently there was no warning here. The economist and former Treasury official Nathan Sheets counters that if businesses aren't inclined to spend, the larger money supply may do little to fan inflation. Well, let's see. Looks like that guy doesn't know what he's doing. Maybe he should get a new job. Nathan Sheets, get a new job. Now you come down here below, it talks about, the Fed Reserve and Congress pushing stimulus efforts. Metrics show rapid growth of the value of money waiting in banks, how much money is available. Investors are saying here the era of small price increases may be coming to an end. Meaning they didn't say it may be, they say it's coming to an end. Okay? Now, nobody took action on this wisdom because you have economists saying it doesn't, who's now wrong. So next time you get in a situation where this economist says it's not happening and certain investors say it is happening, you know the economist doesn't know what he's doing. So ignore that and act based on it. Now, if you had acted based on this, let's talk about a couple things you might have done. So you go back here, you see the money supply increases, 75%, way up here, right? What do you do? Well, let's look at the dates on this. You got this right here, and this may be in 2020, right? And so you look at this house. What was the value of this house in 2020? $155, okay? So if you had seen that and said, I know what inflation is. Inflation is the money supply increasing. So let's buy something that's going to go up or hold its value because of inflation. Let's make money on inflation, okay? So you bought this house at $155 down here, and today it would be worth $240. Okay, so is that an increase? Well, somewhat of an increase because, now it's paid in new money, but at least your money didn't go to zero. And if you leveraged your investment, maybe borrowing from people who thought there's no inflation, then they might give you a 3.5%, 4%, or 5% interest. You may make great money. Another house, less demand area, similar situation, 135, and now it's at 200. We knew this would occur. How did we know this would occur? Well, two ways. Number one, we know what inflation is. we know that ultimately this will be reflected in prices. Now, there is a complication in that, okay? You have to have a time horizon or a view on cause and effect more than 1 month. So if you only have 1 month's attention span for cause and effect, then you cannot see this. You have to have maybe a 6 month or go back in time and learn that before. So when you see this, you know what's going to react. Okay, housing is going to go up, gold is going to go up, anything like that. Now, there is a buffer between money supply and the price of milk, and that buffer is the efficiency to which we can produce that or supply that thing, right? If we get more efficient at it by 20%, either the price is going to drop 20% over a period of time, or inflation is going to consume that efficiency, and the government essentially is going to have an extra little tax there that it got that you weren't aware of, okay? Now, oil prices, you can look up oil production per day. This is oil production over time. So you see 2019, oil production is going up and up and up and up and up and up. Now, look at some things that happened. Here's oil production over time. Here's a drastic drop in oil production, right? So what was caused by that? I can tell you a couple things that happened, but there's a really telling graph here, which is I find very interesting when you talk about oil. So, you know, Biden and Harris, or whatever her name is, have told you they did not do anything to affect the price of oil. Well, they lied. I'm not that you're surprised that they lied, but they did. Okay, so as a candidate, Biden promised, and the American people voted for, ending federal leases for oil and gas drilling as a way to cut greenhouse emissions. We voted for that. Maybe not me, but more the majority of people that at least are on the books did. And that moratorium, that took effect the day he took office. So the day he took office, Biden said no more leases of oil and gas on lands. Now, if you look up here now, you have the highlights. Gas prices through the roof. Okay, oil prices are huge, and he's starting to say, "Hey, I'm going to reduce these resume these leases on federal lands." Okay, well, he eliminated the leases to raise gas prices. That was his intent. That was their plan. Raise gas prices because they feel that raising the gas prices pushes people into using electric vehicles and decreasing their consumption, which is true. And so they did that. Gas prices went up, and that's where you are. So this is what we asked for. This is what we got. So gas prices, congratulations. Now, you look over here, you can see, gas prices over time still pumping out. Now, if you notice something here, is you go back and look at this house right here, pretty much similar. This is an in-demand area, and so you don't see any top on here. People are buying houses because they exist, and so you have gas prices here now. One last thing I did want to mention, here's the stock market. Stock market went up here. Now here, money starts coming out of businesses based on anticipation of interest rates, and that decreases the value of the business. So you've got inflation, money supply, stock market effect, housing effect, oil prices. Some direct correlations, and there are some things that are very clear you could do when you know inflation is coming. Now, in an inflationary environment, one thing to understand is your money in the bank is losing 8.5% to 17% as a tax. That money is basically paying off some of this cost that was incurred through the spending and creation of money supply. You don't see it, but your dollar doesn't go as far. Understand that's happening. understand how that was created, the decisions that were made, understand those decisions were intentional or from incompetence, but it doesn't really matter. They are what they are. Best you can do is try to make a profit, at least not lose money on it, and it's pretty tough for an average person to do. So these are costs that the average person is bearing. Now, if you go back to here, one thing to note is that the inflation numbers were here in January 2021, right here, is when Biden took office, and inflation increased directly like here. Okay, so I don't know exactly how that was done. I assume it was intentional. I assume that that was what they intended. If they didn't, it may have just been from incompetence. But I think we should really grade people on the outcomes of what they produce, and not so much get stuck into the terminology, methodologies, or how you need to be distracted. Secondly, if you see articles now, understand who has credibility, how to understand what's going on, how to determine what you're going to do, and then don't spend much time on this, because just go watch a video, somebody will explain it to you. Make sure it's somebody that doesn't have a lot of angle in how much they make based on your reaction to it. Make sure it's somebody that's not trying to make you afraid. This information should not make you afraid. If somebody presents something in a way that makes you fearful, then they're probably trying to manipulate you, and best switch to somebody else and go from there. Like and subscribe to the video down below. I don't edit. I have a couple hours on Sunday morning that I make most of the videos. During the rest of the time, I'm really focused on running real estate business and sales business, working full time, and creating the value for my family. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.